Hey everyone, this is Kit Cabela with Hard Lens Media. Welcome to this very special interview. We like to promote independent media channels, people that are speaking truth to power, and now more than ever, we need more people to step up to talk about the issues that are impacting a lot of Americans. Right now, corporate media, they're not talking about the fact that we are living in a neoliberal nightmare. We don't have single-payer health care. We don't have student debt forgiveness. Housing is becoming unattainable for a lot of Americans. You got Americans working 2 or 3 jobs just to make ends meet, and it's still not enough. So joining me right now on this show are the hosts of Backyard Politics. I was recently on their show as well. Be sure to check it out after this interview. Give it up for Nikki and Maddie. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you for having us on your show.
Yeah, happy to be here.
Well, you know, I'm always glad to promote other content creators that are speaking truth to power, that are activists, that are organizers, that are, you know, really trying to bring awareness to this economic nightmare that we're in, as well as this political nightmare that we're in. So I think it's only fair to really ask you guys, how did you guys get started with Backyard Politics? What really pushed you forward to create your own independent media network that's going to in which you can, you know, give your opinions and thoughts about the current events that are impacting us all?
Well, I tried to get him to start a channel because he likes to be in front of the camera more than I do.
I like cameras.
He's a performer.
Cameras like me.
So, but he provides for our family, so he didn't have time. So I started the channel because I wanted to just wake up family and friends to what was going on and try to get them to vote for Bernie. But then everything unrolled and, you know, family and friends are the last ones to pay attention, I found out. So for now, he's the co-host, which is kind of awesome.
Yeah. And like the whole thing kind of started too, like with us literally in the backyard talking about politics.
Yeah.
And at one point we were like, we should just film this. I mean, we're bringing up valid points and like, you know, people can understand this if you put it at a level that makes sense to them.
Just having a discussion, opening up discussion.
You know, it just kind of reminds me of when Hard Lens Media got started off when, you know, we met in a bar and like, hey, you know, let's try and do something, okay? At least you guys were in the backyard. We met in the bar, so there we go. That's a little fun story for Hard Lens Media and how we got started. So, excuse me. So I think it's important to really talk about some of the work that you guys do as well and some of the activism that you've been a part of. So one thing, let's talk about mutual aid. For example, right now, sadly, a lot of Americans are doing a lot of GoFundMe, which, again, in the richest country in the world, that shouldn't be the case. A GoFundMe so I can get cancer treatment. A GoFundMe so I'm not evicted from my house. A GoFundMe so I'm not led into medical bankruptcy. It goes on and on and on. I don't know how many times we've covered that story or how you guys have talked about it as well. So you've talked about doing mutual aid. Can you tell our audience just really like what you guys have done in your state respectively and also what it means for a lot of Americans right now?
Sure. We joined a program that's called Free Fridge Salem, and there's free fridges popping up like all over the state and the country. And what it is where it's a mutual aid setup where people donate food, clothing, like hygiene products, everything. And we have a fridge set up in front of our driveway and a pantry set up where anybody that is food insecure can walk up and get food from. And it wasn't our idea. I don't want to take credit for it, but it's been a really awesome experience. We've been making meals for the homeless or food insecure for what, 4 months?
Yeah, I think it's been about 4 months and it's been really eye-opening. And, you know, every like unsheltered person that comes by and grabs food or clothing or hygiene products, whatever they need, they always ask us the same question, like, why are you doing this? Yeah. And it's not a self-righteous thing. It's not like I'm trying to get into heaven or she's trying to get into heaven. It's just the right thing to do.
Yeah.
I mean, we've lived in the same home now for like about 4 years. And I feel like it took us too long to get to this point of realizing like we don't have money, but we can help in other ways. And seeing like, especially where we live, so many unsheltered people and food insecure people walking, down the street. And like, it makes so much sense for us to do this because we can.
Well,
so why not?
It's neighborhood people too. It's like kids from the neighborhood. They'll come up and grab their lunch and go back home. And yeah.
So I think it's very important that we really address this because, like, again, there is a growing homelessness crisis in this country, just like how we have an opioid crisis. There's always a crisis that we're dealing with. But when you're talking to these individuals who have lost their homes or have been homeless for some time, what are some of the stories that they tell you in regards towards how they got there? Is there anything that really kind of stands out to you? And number two, like same thing in Illinois, we have a growing homelessness crisis as well, but yet our politicians in Springfield aren't really addressing it. What are the politicians in your state also doing to address this? Because again, this just can't go on. We just can't as a country have people evicted, but yet we are standing at a dangerous crossroad where 30 to 40 million Americans could potentially be homeless sometime within the next few months. And that is a real nightmare that I don't think any of us can really even imagine.
Yeah.
Well, some of the stories that we've heard from unsheltered people and food insecure, they're all really similar. A lot of people, especially like, the elite, the high and mighty, a lot of right wingers and left, they look at homeless folks, unsheltered people, and they just think like, oh, they just don't want to work. They're just lazy. They just want to do, and they always say dope. Who uses dope as far as that goes anymore? But anyway, they just want to dope up and that's all they want to do. That's not true at all. Maybe a tiny, unmeasurable fraction of them, maybe. But of everybody we've talked to in the community that eats out of our pantry and fridge, they all have a similar story. They want a job. Mm-hmm. They want a home. They want to be members of society. They want to contribute. Like they're just like, they've had like the shit end of the stick more than once. And then they fall between the cracks, and getting out of that once you're in it, it's damn near impossible.
Well, and one guy we've befriended, he said that he tried really hard to get clean from alcohol specifically. And he goes, I can either be homeless or a non-alcoholic, right? Is that right?
He said something effective, I can't be homeless and sober.
Yeah.
Because it's too hard.
Yeah.
I mean, when you wake up behind a church every day, not even in a tent, but a tarp that they let him put up behind the church in an alley. Mm-hmm. Like that's what he wakes up to every day. Mm-hmm. Nobody will hire him because of the way he looks. And like, how do you get out of that?
They're all told to go away too. They're all told like, get out of here, get out of here. And they, when we see them, like if we go out front, they initially like try to scatter, like almost like it, like a raccoon, when you like surprise it, it would scatter away. Right. But if we're like, oh, hey, how's it going? And they're like, oh, why are you doing this? Well, because people should feed you. Like it's the right thing to do.
Yeah.
So yeah, they're used to just being like shoot off and nobody cares.
So then let's actually talk about politics, as it's the name of your show. What has been the actions of your state legislatures? Who is really fighting for the homeless, and is there anyone that's really trying to address this growing crisis? I think for our viewers, like, can you also tell us like where your show is live streamed out of?
Oh yeah, we're out of Salem, Oregon, which is like 45 minutes south of Portland. Mm-hmm. We're the capital of Oregon, and there's mostly like a few ground level politicians that are trying to help. And then mostly the activists step in and try to make sure that the sweeps don't throw away the homeless people's like possessions, because that's what they are. It might look like a mess to somebody, but that's somebody else's home and their belongings, and that's all they have.
Yeah. Well, and to add on that, for those of you that don't know what sweeps are, it's when your city comes together with local law enforcement. They go into unsheltered camps and they just rip the shit apart.
They throw it all away.
They tear everything down and they literally take it to a landfill.
Yeah.
Without notice usually. And the only action that's been done, at least where we are here, and most likely wherever anybody else is is from the ground level mutual aid, like neighbors helping neighbors. Most action to try to help hasn't been from where it should be. It hasn't been from the government. It hasn't been from legislature. It hasn't been from anywhere other than folks similar to us, basically.
Specifically, our mayor and Portland's mayor, Ted Wheeler, who likes to pretend like he's good on the homeless, but he's really not. They shoo the homeless people away. They don't want to see them. Like, don't ask, don't tell. Like, they just don't want to see them. Keep them out of sight, out of mind, right? They're not an issue if we don't see them. But they can't sleep in parks. They can't do this. They can't do that. You know, things like that. And then today we found out that Oregon just passed, or is in the process of passing, legislature where it's legal for unsheltered people to camp anywhere in a public place, but each community has to pass it on their own.
Yeah.
So you have to have a mayor that's willing to actually do that.
It's garbage paperwork. It's basically the state trying to look good, platitudes for days saying, yeah, we're going to work on ending this. And here's the law. But city for city can decide how they interpret it. And if they choose to not let unsheltered people sleep in certain places, we're not going to do anything about it. So it's a bullshit law they're trying to pass.
Well, I find it interesting because looking at this one chart right here, and I wanted to bring this up, and please confirm if there's anything I'm missing out here. But predominantly, the Democrats hold 18 Senate seats in the state legislature. The Republicans have 11, and there's one independent. And then in the House of Representatives, for your assembly, there are 37 elected Democrats in, again, Oregon's state assembly, and then 23 Republicans. So what's going on with the quote-unquote good guys, the Democrats, as they like to portray themselves?
Exactly.
Are they just doing nothing but platitudes at the state level? What's their initial, what is happening? Is there like a blue dog Democrat kind of party in Oregon? And can you elaborate on it? Because I think a lot of our viewers don't really understand what's happening with local state politics in the state of Oregon. I think if we are enlightened by this, I think it's good to call into question about this Democratic majority that's in your state.
It's funny that you said the blue dog Democrat, because Kurt Schrader is actually, he's one of the representatives. He is a blue dog Democrat, literally. And then Ron Wyden, I forget the other guy's name. They all take money from the real estate and big pharma. Like, trying to get Medicare for all passed in Oregon would be nearly impossible right now.
So if there was like what we're seeing in New York, and who knows how that's really going to play out, but it looks like, again, the campaign for New York Health is still going to have to be kicked down the road, because even that, the state assembly looks like they're not going to be voting for it. Is there any kind of talk about doing something at the state level, or is what is actually, like, how much of a pushback is from the Democratic Party in the Oregon state?
They're not. Democrats have been in control for so long. Blue dogs have been in control for so long that they don't have to even try to do anything anymore. Like, it's been generations essentially since they've had control. And so they just kind of sit back in their offices and kick their feet up and take their paycheck.
And the major cities around here, like Salem's a major city, there's mostly liberals. But then outside of city limits, it's all Republicans. And the liberals right now have their freaking eyes closed, and they're, no, nothing's wrong because Trump's not here. And then there's a very small amount of leftists that are actually like out helping with mutual aid and stuff. And then there's the Republicans outside that hate Kate Brown, who's the governor, for legitimate reasons most of the time.
Very legitimate reasons.
But yeah, like, nothing ever changes because it's always Democrat ran. Okay. And they're not afraid either, because they're never challenged, like, really.
So when we're looking at probably the predominant liberal areas, the state, how often? What is the situation with voting rights, and are the districts gerrymandered in favor to keep things as they are, so the status quo remains? Has there been any kind of talk about doing ranked choice voting, or opening up for third parties, because if things remain as they are, it sounds very shockingly similar to what's happening in other states across the country. Certain areas are gerrymandered so that one political party has the majority and nothing has changed for quite some time.
Yeah. If you look at the voting, the borders, if you will, for the voting districts, it does look that way. Like I think they've recently changed one 2 election cycles ago so that it primarily stayed with like the Republican area. And it just looks, if you look at it, like yes, it would be gerrymandering, honestly. And we supposedly have really secure elections here. I don't believe any elections just because I'm skeptical of all of it. But recently at a ground level, we had a win because we elected to not have Nazis in our school board anymore. So
how did that happen?
By a slim margin, by a very slim margin. Yeah.
Yeah, it's like we
could
joke
you elaborate
about it.
on that just a little bit? Because I find that interesting that even flew under the radar.
Yeah, so like we like half-heartedly joke about it, but there literally were like the majority of the school district here in Salem either were directly related to or had ties or financial ties to the 3%ers, Proud Boys, alt-right, Boogaloo Boys, what's it, Patriot Prayer.
Oh yeah,
they were all getting funded by all these alt-right groups, and we fought hard and we got a few of those, I'll just call them out what they are, Nazis, out of the school board.
Mm-hmm. One of the guys showed up in blackface at a school board meeting. Like, yeah.
And
wow,
they laughed
classy.
about it.
Yeah.
They laughed about it.
This is who's teaching our children.
Yeah.
So, yeah. I don't know if you've heard, but Mike Neerman, Representative Mike Neerman, he's the one that let in the armed right-wingers to the Capitol. He let the door open.
No.
Well, yeah, he, after they'd already like shattered the door, they kicked it. He let all these people in with guns and stuff. And
into the Capitol building.
Yes. And come to find out, I just found out the other day that one of his staff members used to be 3%er Angela Roman, who also has ties to Boogaloo. So they're all like intertwined, and nobody really gives a shit, to be honest with you.
So okay, well, when we were looking at like the groundwork for any kind of political pushback or reform, what's it looking like for 2022 for your state's midterm election cycle, be it at the federal level and the state level? Is there any kind of talk about people trying to upend this system and trying to reform it, bring in more progressives? Has there been any kind of talk amongst the activist community to try and at least have an aggressive pushback towards what is something that seems to be very stagnant?
Not enough.
Yeah, not that I've heard. We were a part of helping brand new Congress, Mark Gamba specifically, and that was a while ago, and none of them won. And the, regular liberal Democrats stayed in office, but I haven't heard of anyone specifically running again out of that, or that is even a progressive. I am at the point where if you are going to run as a Democrat, you need to tell me what you're going to do to make sure that it doesn't maintain the status quo, right? Because we can elect Democrats all day long, like we have been in Oregon, and nothing changes.
Right. Mm-hmm. And that's honestly, like, we agree on a lot of things. And that's one thing I just flat out, we disagree on. If you're going to run as a Democrat, I'm not going to vote for you.
Oh, well,
I'm just, fuck you.
It's on ground level.
No, I know. But we're both, though, we will both agree that we're done with the Democratic game, the duopoly. The higher up you go in the chain, the worse it gets. And that you can't reform something that was bullshit to begin with. So you can't fix that. You need something new.
Now, also earlier in this interview, you also brought up that there are some legitimate concerns about your governor, and there's a lot of people that are questioning your current governor's policies. How bad did your governor step in it right now? I think there's been a lot of headlines in regards towards Oregon's governor. Can you elaborate for our viewers about what's happening with that?
About it.
There's just a lot of things. Anything that she tries to do that is like to look good is all just PR bullshit. She's closed the state, opened the state, closed part of the state, open part of the state. Like it's just a back and forth snip snap, if you will. And it all feels like, and I know there's the people that think this is right-wing conspiracy, but it all feels like it's just to tank the small businesses and then bring in the new businesses, like the big corporations like Targets and Walmarts and stuff like that. And I mean, we have an Amazon here too, so.
An Amazon Wellness Center. That's what they're called. Wellness centers.
Are you for real?
Well, that's what some areas call them. Yeah. Amazon Wellness Centers.
Oh, that's so horrible. Oh my God.
If I could, I know you went off about Kate Brown a little bit, but to sum up Kate Brown's actions and inactions within the state, to sum all of that up, her latest bill that's going to pass about how we should deal with the unsheltered, that represents everything she's done this whole time. It's this, hey guys, guess what? We're passing this great bill. It's going to help the homeless people, and you're no longer allowed to kick homeless people out. But also, city for city, you can decide how you interpret it. But I did a good thing, right, guys?
That's what she
that sums her up. She's platitudes for fucking days.
So, in other words, this legislation is here's some good words. Each city and township, you decide what it means in your own to your own perspective. Is that correct?
Yes. Right. She would make a great squad member. Let's put it that way.
Oh, the surrender squad. That's the correct idea right there. The surrender squad. So then as we get ready for 2022, I think we're seeing this massive wave of censorship, and who knows really how this will play out with the political ads that we'll see on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, YouTube. We're probably going to be bombarded with a lot of feel-good promos from the DNC, and of course the Republican establishment is going to say how the Democrats are trying to bring in communism, even though that's not happening at all. Seriously, again, it's just old talking points that are from the 90s. And again, we're not in the 90s anymore. So how has this censorship, especially the media censorship, impacted your channel? And what are your thoughts going forward as we see this massive wave of cancel culture just impacting a lot of content creators, just not only independent media, but a lot of our fellow colleagues in YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, you name it, because we're seeing it happen time and time again where people are being removed, people are being deplatformed or demonetized. I want to get your perspective how it's impacting you, because you guys have a growing channel, but even then, every channel is getting hit. So can you just talk about that?
Yeah, so I don't think anybody should be censored first and foremost. Like I know there's a lot of people that are like, oh good, Trump's not on Facebook or whatever. I just argue against his points. That's how I feel about it. My channel specifically, or our channel, has been suppressed so badly. I've had this thing going for about 2 years now. We go out onto the streets and cover protests while they're happening, but I have to stream through Twitter and then cover it later on YouTube, because YouTube will not let me get past 1,000 subscribers so I can go live from the ground. So anytime I get a little bump, then they start knocking people off, and then I'll call it out on the show, and then they'll bump me up again, and then I'll start getting knocked off. So
it's adorable, honestly. Like it's, I could see it happening a few times where it's like, oh, we got a little bump. And then, maybe put out a video that some of the subscribers don't like. So you go down a little bit. Yeah, that happens. It's totally fine. But the fact that for the last 2 years, it's been 2 steps forward, 1 step back, half step back, 2 steps forward. It's been that way the whole time.
Yeah. Now our channel's being ripped off. So we're Backyard Politics with an X, but there's somebody that looks it looks like YouTube is playing a joke. His name is John Smith, and he has Backyard Politics with like correct spelling. Don't actually look him up. But yeah, so I went and made an Odyssey account and have all my stuff going over to Odyssey and hopefully Rockfin soon. So, you know, we're trying that, but.
And the thing is, like, especially for smaller channels, and again, I know what it's like because we start off, again, you know, you never forget how you got started. Heartlands Media was a smaller channel, but this was during 2017, where, again, in all reality, the best time to have started a YouTube channel was in 2008. But again, you know, no, I don't think any one of us could have predicted this massive wave of censorship happening to us. You know, we've been hit hard by the YouTube algorithm as well. So as content creators, especially as you're covering the protests, like how you guys covered the Black Lives Matter rallies or all these other activist groups that you've covered on your channel. Again, 2 years. Going on to Odyssey and Rockfin, how has that change really, you know, affected you? Like, what are your thoughts on alternative platforms to YouTube? Do you see people eventually leaving these major platforms and going to Odyssey and Rockfin? I mean, do you think, or people will still be stuck in their original mindset of just they're familiar with what they know?
I think that for the majority, and probably because I'm not very good with tech, we'll probably always have YouTube, but it'll switch from YouTube as the main source and like an Odyssey as a backup. I think it'll swap. I think YouTube will be the backup where like, oh yeah, you can get to people that way. But here's where the real stuff is, all of these independent places. Because everyone is being suppressed other than the mainstream media, left and right. So we have to have somewhere to go.
Yeah, I think the future of it, the future of like where censorship is forcing us to go and YouTube and all their bullshit, I think it's going to be not a lot different than like pre-internet to post-internet as far as people wanting to speak. So like pre-internet, you basically, if you wanted people to hear you, you had to go on television. That was your only option. Yeah. Or radio. And then when the internet took off, like suddenly you had voices that were being suppressed that had other avenues to get their voice out. And then YouTube essentially became the NBC of the internet. And like, if you didn't go through there, no one could hear you. But now kind of that same pattern is happening again through other avenues where like people can be saying what they want to say and not getting suppressed. So it's kind of mirroring what happened in the 90s when the internet really exploded and pissed off mainstream media. So yeah, Odyssey, Rockfin, all these other platforms, I think that's where a lot of people that want the truth are going to end up going.
Yeah.
And I think now more than ever, we do need to have more voices out there. I would recommend to all of our viewers to check out your channel. You guys have covered the protests. You've been there on the ground, especially in the early parts of 2020 when the George Floyd protests were happening. And we need more people out there to cover, again, these events. These protests are fundamentally important. It's important to film what's happening there. There's a reason why they're happening in the first place. And we need more people to speak out. And this should be a nationwide thing where everyone who has a chance to have a platform to actually speak truth to power and not spew out the corporate media narrative that we've been hearing for decades. So as we end this interview, I think it's very important for our viewers and subscribers to know where can they find out more about Backyard Politics. That's Backyard Politics with an X. Where can they find you online and social media? Where can they find you on Odyssey? Can you please give those links so that people can find you guys and support your channels?
Sure. So I have a friend named Independent Left News, and he helped me set up backyardpolitics.com. So if you go there, it'll link to my link tree, and then every link is there: Odyssey, YouTube, Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, all of that stuff. Venmo, Patreon. It's all Backyard Politics with an X. So if you search it too, you can find it.
All right, that's fantastic, and I'm very glad to see that you guys are on different platforms and you are diversifying so that in case anything does happen to your YouTube channel, they can at least find you on Twitter or on Odyssey, and eventually, as you said before, you're about to get onto Rockfin, which is fantastic. So it was really great to be on your show. I had a lot of fun, and I'm very glad that you guys had a chance to introduce yourselves to our audience, and I think now more than ever, we need to have more independent media outlets out there, more people to speak out, share their opinion, and break this neoliberal narrative that, again, is starting to get repetitive, boring, and we can no longer afford to listen to. So Backyard Politics, Nikki and Maddie, thank you so much for joining us. My name's Kit Cabello, the host of Hard Lens Media. Peace to you guys, and let us all do what we can to build a better future.